And DD India is on the ground covering the Gaza conflict. My colleague Amrit Pal Singh is joining us from Jerusalem with the latest. Amrit Pal, what is the latest on the escalating conflict in Gaza, especially the diplomatic exchanges that are going over it?
Okay, first the military campaign or military exchange, Shubhendu. Israel has intensified its bombing of the Gaza Strip. Last night is said to have been the worst night, with more than 400 people killed in Israeli airstrikes in the past 24 hours. The death count has gone way above 5,000, more than 15,000 injured. I'm talking in Gaza Strip. While in West Bank, they continue to make arrests of Palestinians. At least 100 Palestinians arrested yesterday itself. Yesterday, the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza was hit very close to the Al-Shifa and Al-Quds hospital in the Gaza Strip, killing dozens there. So relentless bombing by aerial strikes by Israel continue in Gaza, while the Hamas is not letting up in its rocket attacks, continuously firing rockets into Israeli territory. Especially the worst hit are the areas along the Gaza Strip in Israel. Villages have been evacuated, people have been evacuated, moved to faraway, bigger cities which are relatively safer. Like Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jerusalem, near the Dead Sea, etc., away from the Gaza border. The same situation exists on the Lebanon border, but yes, there is intermittent exchange of fire and firing of missiles from Hezbollah and the Israeli army retaliating. They are evacuating people 5 kilometers inside the border. It has been declared a military zone. Only the military and a few journalists covering are allowed there. The civilian population has been evacuated. So both sides, a large amount of displacement happening in Gaza. People moving, 7 lakh people have already moved to the south of Gaza, and the humanitarian crisis there getting worse. Now you asked me about the diplomatic crisis. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with a lot of Western leaders. They reiterated their support for Israel and what they call Israel's right to self-defense, but now the tone is changing. They are saying that Israel needs to start looking at civilian casualties and see how they can be reduced, and also the humanitarian crisis evolving there, and the humanitarian aid that desperately needs to go in. They need to explore ways of how that can hasten. Yesterday only 14 trucks could go in, and there are more expected to go in today. The agreement is for 20 trucks, but the UN says, the UN aid chief Martin Griffiths said that this is a small a glimmer of hope, but the requirement there is much more. The amount of material required there is close to about 100 trucks, but only 20 has been agreed to, and yesterday 14 could go in. On the diplomatic front again, Mark Rutte, Netherlands Prime Minister, will be arriving shortly in Tel Aviv to hold a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Later he'll be traveling to Jordan to meet Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Israeli state. So he'll be telling the Israelis, while supporting the Israelis, but also behind closed doors, telling them that they need to give windows of ceasefire where at least more humanitarian aid can trickle in, and also in their bombing campaign look at more precision bombing, so that civilian targets which are being hit now with the death count going up, that needs to be, they need to look at ways to reduce that.
Okay, Amrit Pal, Israeli Defense Minister speaks of prolonged but decisive fight with Hamas. What are the implications for the region there?
Well, I'll first tell you what he means by a prolonged fight. What they're doing is, their military strategy right now is bombard Israel through aerial bombings, weaken Hamas, hit their infrastructure, weaken them considerably. They've amassed ground forces tanks, artillery, guns along the Gaza Strip, when they have specific information where exactly the military leadership of Hamas, especially the Qasim Brigade's lethal bases are, they go in and do specialized operations. There is a huge network of tunnels that Hamas has created in the Gaza Strip. So, Shubhendu, they need to have specific intelligence, both technical intelligence and human intelligence, before they go in, so that the civilian casualties can be reduced to minimum, because there will be international pressure if civilian casualties increase. Also, Hamas, given that they are guerrillas, they would not shy away from using the Gazan civilian population as human shields. They do not follow any rules of war. And so the Israelis have to factor that in. So given all that, their defense minister's statement that it will take a little while, it will be a protracted battle, because they would want to finish off their lethal power so that they can't affect the kind of attacks they affected on the 7th of October. What are the implications for it for the region? Well, if the ground forces go in, Hezbollah and Iran have warned they will open a front. If Hezbollah opens a front in the north, it will be a two-front war. Then there are questions. What will Iran do? Will Iran directly join the war or through its proxies? Already, Israelis claim that Hezbollah has been there is a steady supply of weapons to Hezbollah, and that's why yesterday they bombed the Syrian airports of Damascus and Aleppo. So clearly there is a threat of regional escalation, and the diplomatic activity is essentially to see that it does not escalate any further. Shubhendu?
Amrit, thanks very much for joining us with those updates. You and your team, please stay safe as you get us the latest from the war zone.